All right, people, are you ready for this? What the heck does Bobulinski have to do with Nagorno-Karabakh? All right, here we go. Now, I don't know if you all realize this, you who are watching, and thank you for watching. The numbers are ticking up. It's exactly what needs to happen. They're going up. We've got more subscribers and more viewership. But I don't know if you realize this as I delve into this subject matter. And I don't just mean the Armenian genocide and Nagorno-Karabakh and Artsakh, but the current day politics in the United States. I'm taking a risk here. You know, over on the other YouTube channel, Tales of Truth, I've got people on both sides of the aisle. Everybody's in agreement that the Armenian genocide was awful, that we need to recognize it, and that's something unifying. And that's really what I'm grateful about this project. There are things that we can all agree upon. Let's stop fighting over things we disagree upon. Well, then we come to this channel, and here I am talking about politics, one of the most divisive subjects. But I cannot deny the facts. As I've gotten into history and researching 100 years ago, and you can find the documents. You don't have people alive from that time. They're gonna say it's unpopular for you to read that source because, you know, everybody believes this one. Now, you just look at the sources and just read them, and you don't have that force of opinion that I know it's like this crowd mass hysteria that forces people to ignore truth sometimes. So now I translate that attitude to today's headlines and look at the data and look at what's happening on both sides. And oh my gosh, who's this guy? Tony Bobulinski just made a name for himself. My goodness, he's just he's now on everybody's lips. Who is this guy? 5 facts you need to know. Now, first of all, before I dive into this and dig into this and connect Tony Bobulinski to Nagorno-Karabakh and my mission to get the United States to recognize statehood for the territory of Artsakh, that's why we're doing this. Before I dive into that, you need to subscribe. Subscriptions are going up and the viewership is going up, but in order to get anything done, those numbers need to keep rising so that we can band together. You can add your voice to mine in this campaign to get the President of the United States to recognize statehood for Artsakh, to end the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict once and for all. So press the button, subscribe now, and then share this video. Also, press that notification bell. That notifies, that'll help you to know when I'm posting videos. Instead of digging for it or forgetting about it, you'll know right away when I post a video. Click that bell. All right, back to the news. I'm going to try and keep, well, we'll see how short I can keep this. I don't have as many articles as I normally do go through, but I've never been to heavy.com, which is the article I'm reading now, but it doesn't matter. It's just some facts that everybody knows, and they've kind of summarized them real quick. So, Tony Bobulinski, anybody who's been following the election and the laptop that Hunter Biden abandoned at a laptop repair shop and has now been turned over to the federal government and to Trump's private attorney, Rudy Giuliani, and there's some incriminating information, thousands and thousands and thousands of emails and texts and photographs and some a lot of personal stuff that you don't want to get into, but some very incriminating stuff that could spell real trouble for the former vice president of the United States who's running for presidency in less than 2 weeks, in like 10 days from now. All right, without further ado, let's read. Tony Bobulinski, 5 facts you need to know. I'm not going to get into all those facts. I'm just going to read these first 2 paragraphs. Tony Bobulinski is the former business partner of Hunter Biden, who says Joe Biden was involved in business dealings with China. Bobulinski, 48, said on Wednesday, October 21st, that the former vice president was a willing and eager participant in a family scheme to make millions of dollars by partnering with a shady Chinese communist firm, according to the New York Post's Michael Goodwin. The Navy veteran said he was the CEO of a holding company partnership between the Chinese firm and the Bidens, including Hunter, Joe, and Joe's brother Jim, the outlet reported. The firm wasn't in it for the money. The firm wasn't in it for the money, but for the political or influence investment, Bobulinski said in a statement to the New York Post. Let me read that again. This is the Chinese firm that is partnering with the Bidens. The firm, the Chinese firm, wasn't in it for the money. In his actual quote, he mentioned specifically ROI, which means return on investment. They aren't partnering to make money. They're partnering for political or influence investment. A political or influence investment with the at the time Vice President of the United States. I've seen Vice President Biden say he never talked to Hunter about business, Bobulinski said. I've seen firsthand that that's not true because it wasn't Hunter's business. They said they were putting the Biden family name and its legacy on the line. All right, that's all I'm going to read from this article. It's just bombshell news. It's 10 days before the election. They call it the October surprise. Yeah, it's a big surprise. Not a real surprise. I don't think it was a surprise to those involved. They're probably hoping this wouldn't come out, and here it is. Now, how does this bode poorly for Nagorno-Karabakh, for Artsakh? Well, this series is called Trump or Biden, Who's Better? Who's Better for Armenia? The former vice president, if this is all true, the former vice president and his family were doing business selling influence to a communist Chinese firm. Okay, well, that's communist China. I want to go back to an article we read earlier in the week from the South China Morning Post. Now, this is purportedly an independent newspaper out of, with a private owner or whatever, but any business associated with China is under the thumb of the Communist Party. So this is definitely edited to present China in a more favorable light. So read it in that light whenever you read these kinds of sources. I read this article previously, or pointed out this article in a previous episode, but as Armenia and Azerbaijan clash, where will China stand? Now, this is from earlier this month. During this current clash. But what I want to point out is this history, how China's been involved in this area. China commenced its more active participation in the region, in the regional affairs in 2015, inking agreements with Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia. In 2016, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank granted Azerbaijan a $600 million loan to finance partial construction, blah, blah, blah. And that was 2016, and then 3 years later in 2019, Azerbaijan and China signed deals worth over $800 million, invigorating bilateral cooperation in the non-oil sector. All right, so this is a major, major investment on the Azerbaijan side, and this handshaking picture right here, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but this was taken on April 24th, 2019, so it's related to that second deal we were talking about, this one, the $800 million investment deal with Chinese companies, communist-run companies. Scrolling down, while the $50 million in aid China has given Armenia since 2012 is not huge, it reflects Beijing's desire to be a more proactive participant in regional affairs. This has been mostly limited to economic penetration into the region without political or ideological pressure. All right, so China's investing in both sides. But note the disparity. 50 million versus 600 million plus 800 million. That's let's do the math, 1.4 billion versus 50 million. And in this other article from The Diplomat, Know the Asia Pacific, that's just a subhead. Can China, and this is from over a year ago, and this is closer to when this picture was taken. Can China broker the resolution of the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict? So it's not related to the current conflict going on, but it's an ongoing conflict. And so over a year ago, China's expanding economic ties with the two sides of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict give Beijing important leverage to push for quick resolution. I encourage you to read this article, but I'll just read a little bit. There's a lot in this that's informative, but the region started to gradually capture Beijing's attention in the wake of the launch of the Belt and Road Initiative in 2013. The growing desire of the regional countries to attract Chinese investments accelerated this process. The region's attractiveness was also affected by the economic downturn in the economies surrounding in the South Caucasus, Iran, Russia, and Turkey, which created more room for the influx of China's economic influence. Okay, so that's the bottom line here. China sees an opportunity to go and be an influence, and that's part of this thing called the Belt and Road Initiative. So what is the Belt and Road Initiative? It's China reaching out to the world to get influence. That's just the bottom line. They are geographically isolated, but they're everywhere. They are investing everywhere, all over the place. Hollywood can't make movies unless they answer to China. And the NBA can't, support Hong Kong because that's counter to China's motives. So the Belt and Road Initiative is just that nice sounding term. This is our initiative, which means take over the world, do whatever we can to take over the world, have influence around the world. Now, again, how is this related to Nagorno-Karabakh? Well, even though they've given money to both sides, number one, the disparity in those dollars is significant. What's the verse? Where your treasure is, your heart will be also. So, in other words, what you put your money in is what you pay attention to and what you care the most about. And I'm going to point something out here that struck me the other day when I was reading this. This is these two guys shaking hands on April 24th, 2019. If you're an Armenian, you already know what I'm about to say. If you're a Christian that doesn't know why April 24th is important, then I'm glad you're watching this, because this is really the point of this whole podcast. April 24th is the one day a year that every Armenian on the planet memorializes the beginning of the Christian Holocaust of World War I. The Armenian genocide began on April 24th, 1915. So, is it a mere coincidence that Xi Jinping comes to the president of Azerbaijan, which is a Turkish nation, ethnically Turkish nation, and it was the Turks that massacred the Armenians 105 years ago? Is it a coincidence that an $800 million investment comes into a Turkish state bordering Armenia? Perhaps Xi Jinping is oblivious to this date. I kind of doubt it. They don't just do things obliviously. They're very calculated in what they do. But it's certainly not a mystery to this guy, to the president of Azerbaijan. And it's absolutely not a mystery to every Armenian looking at this date. If China is supposed to bring influence into this area, and as this article purports, to have a calming effect and bring a resolution to the conflict, this is not how you do it, because every Armenian who sees this sees it and is terrified that Armenia is terrified that Armenia will experience a repeat, perhaps once and for all, of what happened in 1915. 105 million men, women, children were deported into the desert without food and water, without money, without transport, without clothing, left to die, and they did. Many of them were brutally massacred. Others were left just to starve to death and perish to the elements. So, when an Armenian sees a picture of Xi Jinping shaking hands with the president of Azerbaijan on April 24th, that's not a good thing. Let me tie this back into Joe Biden. So Joe Biden's doing business, it seems, and even if he's not, even if what Bobulinski is purporting and this hard drive and the Republicans are purporting, even if all of that turns out to be false and is Russian disinformation, Joe Biden's record on dealing with China is just as damning. Again, this series is called Trump or Biden, Who's Better? Who's Better for Armenia? And whoever's friendlier with China is friendly with genocide. This article from The Atlantic, this is from October 4th this year. Saving Uyghur Culture from Genocide. China's repression of the Uyghurs in Xinjiang was has forced those in the diaspora to protect their identity from afar. I'm just going to read a little bit of this. How do you protect a culture that is being wiped out? For Uyghurs, this is more than just a hypothetical. Repressive measures against the ethnic minority have progressively worsened. The Chinese government has corralled more than 1 million of them into internment camps, where they have been subjected to political indoctrination, forced sterilization, and torture. The targeting of the Uyghurs isn't limited to the camps. Since 2016, dozens of graveyards and religious sites have been destroyed. The Uyghur language has been banned in Xinjiang schools in favor of Mandarin Chinese. Practicing Islam, the predominant Uyghur faith, has been discouraged as a sign of extremism. All right. You can continue read. You can go on and read this, but this is a genocide happening today. When you destroy graveyards and religious sites, and when you ban a language, those are a genocide isn't just killing people. It's eliminating a culture. It's eliminating any memory, any trace that culture ever existed. Forced sterilization means no more of you. There'll be no more of you populating, putting them in internment camps, and it gets worse. This is from Europa Health website, and this is from January of this year. Forced organ harvesting, one of the worst mass atrocities of this century. I'm telling you, Christians, if you don't know this, you need to know it. And if you have friends and family that don't know this, share it with them. Subscribe and share. This is information that the Christian community needs to know today. A genocide is happening today, and it's worse than any of the movies and horror films you've ever seen. It's happening right now. If you can picture right now a person laying on a hospital bed without anesthesia, getting cut open, and one of their organs being pulled out and cut out and delivered to a high-paying client, and then that person gets sewn back up and thrown into a room left to die. That's happening every day. All right. My soapbox, I keep stepping up and down. In 2019, HEQ was contacted by representatives for survivors of the persecution, torture, and forced organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners in China. Okay, Falun Gong is a religious practice, but it's not associated with a deity, but it's more of a meditation. And China sees it as a threat. It undermines the communist way, etc. Hoping to raise awareness of their situation, practitioners of Falun Gong, a Chinese spiritual practice which consists of a combination of meditation and Qigong exercise, have been persecuted in China since 1999. The Chinese Communist Party have arrested countless members of the practice. Many practitioners have reported that while they were in China's extensive network of detention centers and forced labor camps, they were tortured. Evidence indicates that Falun Gong practitioners, Uyghur Muslims, Tibetans, and other prisoners have been further subject to forced live organ harvesting. Due to the lack of voluntary organ donors within the country, China has taken extreme measures in order to provide transplants for its nationals and organ tourists. These organ tourists travel from all over the world to buy an organ from a non-consenting prisoner for a minimum of around, this is in English pounds, 5,000 pounds, thousands of dollars. Falun Gong practitioners who were imprisoned in China's detention centers and labor camps reported undergoing unexplained medical examinations and blood tests as a precursor to live organ harvesting, while doctors who were involved in the practice report of basements filled with live prisoners whose organs were extracted on demand. Okay. This is the country that it is alleged the potential future president of the United States is doing side business deals to enrich himself with. Okay, I'm putting myself out there. I've got friends that will think I've lost it and this is all conspiratorial and you're just a repeating Republican talking points. That's kind of the retort that you hear a lot when you just start spouting facts that are happening. Those are Republican talking points. Like, no. I've been reading from The Atlantic. I've been reading from the Wall Street Journal. Actually, let me get to the Wall Street Journal. And this is from just a couple days ago, October 20th, Wall Street Journal, the Bidens and China business. The story won't go away without explanation, even if the Veep wins. This could be the next president of the United States. And if the allegations that he has been enriching himself and his family through backdoor dealings, peddling influence as the vice president of the United States, as a senator of the United States for 47 years, then Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh have no hope of avoiding another genocide. If we're going to do business with a country that does genocide and makes money off it, who cares about these minority populations, these ethno-religious minorities? They don't have intrinsic value. They have instrumental value. How can they benefit us, the Communist Party, and enrich those who do business with them? So I don't need to read this article. I'm just saying, who's better, Trump or Biden, for Armenia? Subscribe, click the notification bell, and share this. I get a little worked up, but there are people dying right now. And many more could die if we don't stop it.